So I went to an all-boys school. Feels like it was yesterday, but I know it really wasn't yesterday. At school, we didn't have the opportunity to study psychology, and I think at that stage, I probably wouldn't have known very much about what psychology was about. I maybe would have had some notions, but they would have been kind of based on very little fact. I did study sociology at at school, and I found sociology very fascinating because you do learn quite a lot about, the role of different groups within society, and looking at, for example, the role of the family within society and looking at it from different perspectives. So I did find that interesting, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to university, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. And a bit later on, I actually went to Belfast Met, and I studied a access course, which was kind of a combined course in both sociology and psychology. So having studied sociology before, I thought to myself, well, I'll maybe have another go and see if it's something I'm interested in. But at the same time, studying psychology, a brand new subject, something I didn't have any experience of, I was very interested to see what it was all about. And actually, very, very quickly into the course, I did find that my interest in sociology kind of waned, while at the same time, I started to get very, very interested in psychology. There were a few things about psychology that really interested me in particular. And the first thing was really the breadth of the different topics within psychology, which Aidan touched on at the beginning, and Chris also mentioned. So, 1 week you're learning about the kind of biological perspective to understanding behaviour in terms of the role of genetics and the role of, in terms of hereditary, passing on genetic material from parents to offspring, and how that can explain the development of certain behaviours. Then you would be learning about something completely different, for example, learning about perception and learning about, how the visual system works and how the the hearing system works as well. So you had a mixture of topics there. You would have had some topics that were very close to, what are considered to be the hard sciences. And then you had, on the other scale, you had other subjects that were maybe more like sociology or kind of philosophy or even history as well, because you did learn about the history of psychology and, where it emerged from and why we consider it to be a science. So while I studied psychology at college, I also became interested in research methods and statistics. Which is, it's an important part of psychology learning, especially at degree level. And I became very interested in this idea of, we can pose some kind of question about everyday human experience. We can devise a way that we can measure some aspect of human experience in order to answer that question. We can collect data and we can make some kind of conclusion regarding the results that we've obtained. And I find that process really fascinating, and how you can apply it to different types of questions, within different aspects of psychology. And from that, that kind of interest, I really did become very interested in carrying out research. And it was something that, fortunately, I seemed to get pretty good at college. And I left college with a really good mark, and had the opportunity then to go and study psychology at university level. By this stage, I have a real interest in psychology, but I don't know specifically what it is that maybe I would want to do in the future. When I began university, I did have an awareness of psychology being a science, and I had a bit of an insight into what psychology was about and the different topics that we studied. But as I said, I wasn't dead set on any particular career. As I went through university, one thing I found very strange compared to school was the disparity in terms of males and females. So I think in a year of maybe 150 students, there were maybe 20 males, and I think all the males in the year knew each other as well. In college, it was less marked because the class was quite small, but in university, it was just a bit, it was a bit different to what I was used to. But I didn't think that really made any great impact, and I was very fortunate to have some great tutors throughout, some great male tutors throughout the 3 years that I spent in undergraduate. As I went through undergraduate, I got more and more interested in research, and I actively sought out different research opportunities. By then, maybe by the middle of second year, I kind of got the idea that I was interested, like Gary as well, I became interested in cognitive psychology. I was particularly interested in different theories of thinking and how thinking underlines kind of judgment about statistics. So I became interested in that kind of area, and it led me to, by the beginning of my final year, I made the decision that I wanted to do a PhD because I was so interested in research. I had worked as a research assistant one summer at the university. I had also got on the placement program where I was able to apply my research skills. So I actually did a placement at Grant Thornton. They're now called Aperture. They're a large auditing firm. So I got a placement there for 6 months. I helped to create research, put together questionnaires that were going to be used in the workplace. So by then, I knew I was interested in research, and that's what I wanted to do. So I undertook a PhD. I only finished a couple of years ago. I did my PhD in developmental psychology. So my PhD focused on understanding skills that children need in order to become successful at maths. So I really focused on, the extent to which, children who have good ordering skills, do they also tend to be the children who have better mathematical skills as well. So a lot of my research focuses on looking at different types of ordering measures and how they relate to early mathematical development. And what I currently work on now is trying to develop a questionnaire which might be an early screener for detecting potential mathematical difficulties. As well as enjoying research, another thing that I have really enjoyed was I had the opportunity to engage in some teaching opportunities while I was a PhD student. So I worked as a teaching assistant during lab classes, and I would have helped with some marking as well. And I think it was, kind of the influence of particular tutors that I had throughout my time in university that really, kind of shaped, the idea that maybe I can do this too. Maybe this is something that I might actually be good at. And later on, I was fortunate enough to get some further teaching opportunities outside of Queen's, and then have been able to return then last October. So I'm now working as a lecturer in education here at the School of Psychology. So I would say, in terms of the message for for prospective male students, if you have come from for example, if you came from an all-boys school where you don't have obviously there's no females in the school, coming to the School of Psychology, it might be initially just a bit strange in terms of, oh, there's you feel as if you're in the minority, but really the main thing is that psychology is such a diverse degree. It's not the case that psychology is a degree for females, for example, and I think people will be surprised at the kind of questions that psychology can answer as a science, and I would strongly encourage any male who had some interest in psychology to take it up as a degree. The range of skills that graduates finish the degree with are so vast. They're not restricted to just your traditional kind of psychological skills, but other skills that will improve your employability going forward.